Your cursor sits over the chat box, and half the chat is already dropping fire emojis before the sentence finishes. You tell yourself, if I say it and I can back it up, they'll have to listen. You still believe truth wins. You've believed that since your first fight with a friend, since the last group chat where you were the only one telling the truth. Or did it only make you easier to isolate? Has that belief ever actually paid out? Somewhere on a tech campus outside Austin, an engineer named Owen Reyes hits send on a reply all, not a rant, a memo, line by line, footnoted, boring in tone and devastating in content. The safety benchmark the company just presented to Congress was quietly rerun 3 times until it produced several executives the company liked. He isn't trying to be a hero. He's correcting a fact, the way you'd correct a typo. He assumes what you'd assume, that once the truth is on the record protects him. For about 4 hours, it looks like he's right. Then legal joins the thread. By Friday, Owen isn't being investigated for lying. He's being investigated for hostile communication patterns. Nobody disputes his numbers, not one person. The complaint doesn't mention the benchmark once. He learns in real time that being correct and being safe were never the same policy. The official complaint says Owen undermines psychological safety. That's the language on paper, but nobody in that room actually believes he's dangerous. They believe he's inconvenient. What the board can't forgive isn't the memo. It's what his presence does to everyone else in the room. Every person who saw the real numbers 8 months ago and said nothing now has to explain to themselves why they didn't. Owen isn't on trial for what he knows. He's on trial for what he made everyone else notice they already knew. And it turns out this wasn't a one-time slip into bravery. His manager pulls 3 years of code review comments, calmly worded, always correct, always the same shape. This metric doesn't mean what we're telling investors it means. Nobody flagged it before because nobody had to. Now it reads like a pattern. Now it reads like a personality. HR quietly pulls 4 other senior engineers. Off the record. All 4 say some version of the same sentence. Yeah, we knew. We just didn't say it out loud. The problem was never one man seeing something the others missed. The problem is an entire floor saw it and organized itself, silently, around not mentioning it. HR offers Owen a deal. Sign the NDA, take the severance, keep your reputation intact. He says no. Within a week, the internal narrative flips. He isn't the guy who caught a bad number anymore. He's the guy who couldn't let it go. His refusal to take the exit gets read back to him as proof of the very instability the complaint accused him of. Every attempt to clarify himself becomes more evidence against him. In 1951, a psychologist named Solomon Asch ran an experiment that had nothing to do with tech campuses. He sat people in a room, showed them lines of obviously different lengths, and asked which one matched a reference line. Alone, subjects got it right almost every time. Surrounded by actors instructed to confidently give the wrong answer, over a third of people abandoned what their own eyes were telling them, and agreed with the room instead. This wasn't about intelligence. Asch's subjects weren't stupid. Something in the human nervous system treats social exile as a more immediate threat than factual error. Being wrong together registers as safer than being right alone, not a moral failure, a factory setting. Which means Owen's building didn't fail him by accident. It did exactly what rooms full of decent people are built to do.
And the uncomfortable part isn't what that says about his company. It's that the wiring in that room is the same wiring behind your ribs right now, the one telling you, quietly, that you'd have been the one who spoke up.
So, go back to the cursor over the chat box. Owen already answered this question for you. And here's what the answer cost him. Not his freedom, not his safety, his career, his reputation. 8 months of being described by people who used to like him as difficult. That's what cancel culture and Athens actually have in common. The verdict is never about the facts. 2,400 years before Slack channels and HR departments, Socrates had already discovered the same social algorithm. It's about who can no longer stand being seen. Somewhere tonight, you're deciding the same thing. Not whether you're right. He never once said anything that turned out to be false. That was never the risk. The risk was always what happens after you're right, in a room that needed you to be wrong. It's about whether you can survive being witnessed. That's a question worth sitting with. Subscribe, think deeper, live sharper.